I myself am a stage, not one, not two, but stage 3 breast cancer survivor. And I truly understand what cancer is like. So I don't want to delay the time anymore because I have 4 guests tonight, y'all. Look, we just keep going higher and higher. And in fact, it's an exclusive because this is the first time I believe that they all came together, not on their show, but on our show. So I'm excited about that. So I want to talk about each and every lady that's coming on tonight. We have our Brushstrokes ladies. And our first one is Coach Tanya Bankston. She says, while many struggle to keep their heads in the game, Coach Tanya Bankston helps clientele worldwide leap over hurdles and successfully cross the finish line many times with minimal sweat and tears. Out of the shadows of abuse, low self esteem, and trust issue, Bankston pushes clients to discover and cultivate their leader within. And she completes with her no nonsense coaching style. I'm going to repeat that again. She completes her no nonsense coaching style, zero tolerance for excuses, and passion for reinvention and repurposing. Bankston inspires women to transition from simple existence to living a life of abundance unapologetically. Our next guest, Coach Tamara J. And guess what? I get to add a new last name to it. It's Brown. And she says, a survivor turned overcomer. Tamara J. is a woman who transformed her pain from domestic violence and addiction into purpose by faith and pursuing a career in counseling and life coaching. Now a full-time mompreneur, serving her corner of the world as a dual licensed counselor that specializes in treating trauma, addiction, anxiety, challenges with anger, and Coach Tamara J is wildly passionate about helping her high achieving individuals experience phenomenal breakthroughs. Our next guest, her mantra says, what I have been through will help you get through. That's what Valerie says. She said, after living through her own trials and setbacks, she knew her experiences were not only for her. That's why Valerie moves full steam ahead to fulfill her passions to educate, empower, inspire, and equip women to regain control of their lives and wellness so they can enjoy emotional, mental, and spiritual abundance. Last but certainly not least, Felicia says that she is no stranger to the C word, and she encourages women to be honest and transparent about their infertility journeys. While she was 19 years old, Felicia was diagnosed with cervical dysplasia that resulted in cancer cells developing in the cervix that led to infertility and conceiving complications. Felicia is upfront and honest about her early beginnings and encourages others to not be ashamed to tell their story. So, without further ado, I want to introduce you to the Brushstroke ladies. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
How are you doing this evening?
Awesome.
Well, I'm well.
I would say I'm blessed and highly favored.
I love it. I love it. So I know I read your bios, but I wanted to go one by one real quick. Just give us a brief because so we could get more into our conversations. Tell us a little bit more about yourselves that was not talked about in the bios. Let's start with Coach Tamara J.
Oh my goodness, what is not in that infamous bio? You know what? Most people don't know that I am 46 years old. Yeah, they don't know that, and that I've got 4 grandchildren, okay, that
Wow.
I absolutely love and absolutely adore. And so, yeah, I'm also a Grammy.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Coach V.
What's not in that bio is that I am 67 years old and I'm now 6-time best-selling author.
Come on, 6 time. I love it. All right, Felicia, what about you?
Well. I'm 50 years old. Don't let this face fool you. Some people say
All
I'm in my
right.
40s. Some people say I look like I'm in my 30s. But what comes out of my mouth is nothing but wisdom. I am a wife. I am a mother of a 21-year-old, soon to be a grandmother. Been married 26 years, and I am a life empowerment coach. And I have a very strict boot camp style of life coaching.
Love it. All right. Last but not least, our no nonsense therapist. Tanya, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, do I have to tell my age because they told their age?
It's up to you, but I mean, you might as well.
I'm soon to be 55.
That's
I
awesome.
have two adult sons. One is 34 and the other one is 31. And I have a beautiful, beautiful 3-year-old granddaughter that I just absolutely love and adore.
Love it, love it. Well, welcome, ladies, to the show. Since you all shared your ages, I guess I'll share mine. I am in my last year of my 30s. I'm 39. I'll be 40 next year. I'm so excited about that. So I'm just so delighted to be amongst all of you seasoned, lovely, beautiful ladies. So let's get into it. So we actually have 2 cancer survivors that's among us right now between the 4 of you. So we got Miss Coach V and we got Miss Felicia, Coach Felicia, that both has dealt with cancer. So I'm gonna start with you, Coach V. Tell us a little bit about your testimony.
My testimony, it started, I think it was like 3 years ago. I was getting my hair cut, and the stylist said, Miss Valerie, I think something's going on in your head. And I'm like, I've been getting my hair done all this time. Nobody said anything. And I said, well, take a picture. I want to see, because I have a health background. And of course, I think I'm a doctor. I play one. So I'm like, well, show me the picture so I can analyze it. So she showed me the picture and I'm like, oh my God, that really does look like something. So I went to the doctor. They did a biopsy and I'm like, oh, it's nothing. I told God that I never want to have cancer because a lot of people in my family have cancer and have survived and some have not. So I never want that word attached to my name. And they called me, I guess maybe the third week, and said, you have stage 4 squamous cell skin cancer.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh my God. And I was at massaging. I was getting ready to massage people. And I'm like, well, how am I going to do that? So I said, guys, you got to get me through this. And of course he did. And I had 3 surgeries on my head, and then they found some cancer other places, and I had to have surgery there as well. So now I get, checked every 6 months and, to make sure that everything is okay, from head to toe.
That's awesome. How long have you been a survivor?
This is my 2nd year.
Oh, so it's still very recent for you.
Yeah. And today I found another little spot that I'm a little concerned about because it's been there for about 2 weeks, and it heals and then it doesn't, so I have to get that checked. So
we're going to talk about that too. We're going to talk about every time there's a new bump, lump, skin change. We're going to talk about that because that does play with your mental. We're going to hang on to that. Coach Felicia, tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, I would definitely say when I was 19 years old, back then in the late 80s, early 90s, there wasn't a lot of testing for human papillomavirus virus. And at that time, I was in a relationship and I didn't realize that I had contracted an HPV. And that's something that I generally don't talk about. And it ended up being cervical dysplasia, but then it escalated to turning to cervical cancer. And I did not get tested right away. And because of that experience, I had to have surgery. I had to have my line of my uterus removed. It led to infertility. I had to have laparoscopy. I had to have hysteroscopy type surgeries so they can go deeper. When the doctor says, Felicia, you have some abnormal cells here, and they had to do further testing, that's when I realized, my goodness, what have I done? I immediately went into what have I done, not what did someone else do? What happened to, what did I do? Because at that time I was not educated as to how a virus can go through one's body, how one can sexually really be transmitted a virus. I didn't know anything about HPV. And so when I do talk about my story, that's one piece that I do kind of keep hidden because I was not at the time, even now, even still, not happy to really to disclose. So that led to infertility. That led to me getting checked every 6 months. Every last one of my aunts and uncles have died of cancer.
Wow.
whether it is breast cancer, whether it's pancreatic cancer. I have 3 aunts that passed away to stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Mm.
It was throat cancer due to smoking, or what do you call it when your kidneys or your lungs is black? Cirrhosis. I
Mhm.
had an uncle that died of that. When I end up getting contracted cervical dysplasia that turned to first stage cancer, the first thing my mom said was, "Oh Lord, it skipped me and got my daughter,"
Wow.
because she was thinking that she would be not a candidate, but she thought that she would be one like her siblings that will one day have
Mhm.
cancer.
Let's dive into that a little bit more. So, both of you, for both Coach V and then for you, Coach Felicia, about you guys both got cancer at different stages of your life. You being younger and then you being more seasoned. So, for you, Felicia, tell us a little bit more about, okay, so you had this history pattern of seeing your family members. Mentally, did you think once you got cancer, did you ever think that you would see 25? Did you ever see 30? Because after seeing so many loved ones die in such a manner with cancer, now that this was now your reality, could you see yourself 5 years, 10 years later down the line?
That's a very good question, because sometime last year I had another concern, which my
Mhm.
brushstroke sisters were apprised of. And I had to take a mental health
Mhm.
break. I recently have received a letter indicated that we need for you to come back into the office. And this was like around Halloween of last year. And going into the office, and they said, there is something there, and we're going to have to go in and do a procedure. Now, this is something that I generally do not talk about, even to my brushstroke sisters, because I'm a private person.
Mhm.
Um, Knowing that my mother had 13 siblings, and there's only 2 of them alive now, her and her sister in Gary, Indiana.
Mhm.
I did not really see beyond the day that I was told, "You have, Felicia, possible you may have cancer." I
Mhm.
wrote about it in this anthology called The Making of an Elite Woman,
Mhm.
because for me, people used to say, first come marriage, then come the baby carriage.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't have that.
Mhm.
And I hid that from my husband for many years before we got married. He didn't know at the time that something was wrong. We've been trying and
Mm.
trying and trying, but I held that secret. I didn't reveal it until there was one day I had to have surgery. There was a mistake by the doctor. They cut me from left to right in the bikini area. I had a lot of endometriosis that had wrapped around my fallopian tubes.
Wow.
And I was even told that I couldn't conceive. And it was a medical mistake that caused me my blood pressure to drop. And the doctors came out and said that we're going to have to take her infertility organs. And my husband has said, "No, you're not. Everything that she came in here with, she's going to leave intact with." But even with that experience, one of an abortion that I had at 18,
Mhm.
and then 19 to be told that I had abnormal cells, and I had to make a decision, and then had to go through treatment age 20. And then I meet my husband at 21, and we get married at 24. And that weight of the world I had carried that for so long, even from my mother. And she saw some papers up under my bed regarding the abortion that I had, because
Mhm.
at the time I was scared, I was afraid. And even today, sometimes I regret it, because sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I would have kept that child.
Yeah.
So I don't say the C word at all. It does not exist in my vocabulary, because when I say it, I give it life. And it does, and it could have taken my life, but
Mhm.
I don't speak it. So when I tell people the C word, they say, "What does that mean?" And I tell them. But outside of
Just
that,
know.
exactly, I didn't see beyond that day. But I'm gonna say, for me, only for me, my life changed, because I am an advocate to
Mhm.
be able to talk to young women who are making a decision
Yeah.
whether to have a baby or not have a baby. Whatever their choice may be, I'm there to talk to them and able to tell them what my life story was like.
Mhm.
And even still, I may have had a lot of hair, but there were parts of my hairline that didn't grow back. There was parts where my skin was blotchy. And there
Mhm.
was things in the genital area that just did not look normal.
Yeah.
So these are things that I'm just now really expressing and talking about.
I love that. We're going to come back to that a little bit more. I want to go back to Coach V a little bit more, and then we're going to bring our other two sisters in so they don't feel lonely all by themselves on this podcast.
Mhm.
But Coach V, you said something that you said that you didn't want to have cancer attached to your name.
Mhm.
So when it did, what did that do to you mentally?
To be perfectly honest, fear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because my mother passed away from breast cancer and lung cancer. Her sister, same thing. My uncle, I think his was lung. And, other distant family members passed
Mm-hmm.
away from cancer. So I can remember at a young age, always telling God, please, I don't ever want that. I don't, and like you, Felicia, my grandmother would never say the C word. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, cancer. She would say the C word, and she would almost like whisper it. They get the C word. And when my grandfather passed away from prostate cancer, she never would say that word. And so when I was diagnosed, I can see myself right now what I was doing. I was leaned against the countertop in my shop, just picking up the phone. Hello, and she's like, "Is this Valerie Stantz?" I was like, "Yes." This is Doctor. Why can't I remember her name? Probably because I don't want to. But this is Doctor whatever. And I just wanted to tell you, unfortunately, the biopsy we took was stage 4 squamous cell. So, I have a healthcare background. So she said stage 4. And I'm like, I think I stopped
Mm-hmm.
breathing for like a couple minutes, but it seemed like hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, so, what am I supposed to do now? And I can remember that fear just took over, like, and I mean, I was like, God, I told you, I don't want that attached to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna trust you, because it's skin cancer, and skin cancer is not to be taken lightly because you can pass away from it.
Yeah.
So that was another fear because when you're in the healthcare, you know too much,
Mm-hmm.
and squamous cell is not good either. So I'm, as she's talking, you can see all these things in my mind, like boom, 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 boom. And, so now I have to get myself together. I remember calling my daughter and like, oh my, I'm crying now. They told me I have stage 4, blah, blah, blah. She's like, Mom, just calm down, come over after you get done your clients. So I had to do those clients and,
Mm-hmm.
like not cry and not be upset. So, I never wanted it attached. And so now anytime I feel anything and my 6-month checkup, I'm there. I don't cancel. I
Mm-hmm.
don't do anything. I am there. If I can't go to work because I have to be there, I will be there and not go to work. That's, how
Absolutely.
important it is.
I like that you said that, even though that you were eh, maybe use the word agitated with God, like, hey, I done told you this is not what I want to deal with. I like that you said that you trust him. I know sometimes some people lose their faith during this journey because they're like, okay, God, you already know my heart. You already told me to trust in the Lord with all my heart, and I'm doing that. It's like, and then you're allowing these different things to come to pass in my life. And I like that you said that you still trust them in the midst of what you were going through. I think that's very commendable and important. And people need to hear that as well, because some people just really fall away when things go rough in their life. For both either Coach Mary J or even for Tanya, tell us, what is it like to both be a life coach, therapist, and minister to your sisters who are going through something real time in the space that you're in?
Well, I will say this, that, because of the bond, that we share, in the closeness. And I mean, I, you know, I know with Felicia, it was scary because, again, you know, I knew and I understood that she was reserving certain things and parts of what she was dealing with, and I really felt honored just to be in that healing space, to be able to be what I like to call like prayer support and everything. But
Mhm.
when you hear that C word, you know, the first thing that comes to your mind is, oh my God, I'm about to lose somebody I love, you know,
Mhm.
or oh my God, I mean, she's in a whole nother state. I'm here, you know, really, how can I, what do I do? What do I say? How do I say it? And so all of these concerns, you know, come about, and it's difficult because again, when you care about someone, you don't want to
Yeah.
see anyone suffer. You don't want to see anyone go through, you know, facing something that, you know, could typically usher them into the end of life type of chapter. And so, you know, for me, it was scary, you know, and I wasn't first on the scene or, you know, first impact responding, but just as a secondary source of love and sisterhood with her. It was scary. It was scary. Yeah.
For me, I know I had to be in that space where I said, how can I support you? How can I serve
Mhm.
you? What can I do? Because I'm like Coach to Mary J. It's like it is scary. You know,
Mhm.
I'm sure it's really, really scary for the person that gets the diagnosis. But
Mhm.
then to be in that space where you're supporting someone who has the diagnosis, it's like, what do I do? You know, you can't fix it. And I think for me, being a professional helper, you always want to fix things. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just tell me what I can do to support you. And that's the
Mhm.
best that I can do.
Yeah. That's good. So listen to our viewers and roses. Listen, you have 4 life coaches, therapists, mental health professionals on this podcast. Please make sure you ask any questions that you would like to get asked during this time. Take this free advice, okay? Because you know, if after today you got to go back to paying, so make sure you take advantage of this. All right, so back to it. I want to dive into a little bit more about the mental health side of dealing with cancer and just really just issues, period. I know I spoke to someone the other day and they talked about the residual effects of cancer. And I wanted to dive in a little bit more about that because, you know, for some individuals, like if you had breast cancer, you know, your breast can change. You may have lost both breasts. You may have lost one breast. If you had cancer in general, you may have just lost your hair and other things. Your skin gets darker if you had chemo. So you may not necessarily look the same. You may not even act the same because really it just changes you. Your good cells and your bad cells are changed. So how do you coach somebody who is currently going through the residual effects with people who abandon them, people who reject them, and those who stay away because they feel that that's best that they stay away versus being present because they can't handle what they're seeing right in front of their eyes.
Our Brushstroke sisters aren't saying anything. Normally, we're always they're on their best behavior, First Lady Kim. So I'm
That's right.
right in, and I would say one of the things that that I do, aside from saying how can I support you, is just to be in that space where I help them to normalize their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Them to understand that what you're going through, what you're feeling, is part of the process for you, and it's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Um, don't you know? I try to discourage them from being in that space where they're comparing themselves to other people. Yeah, the experience of having this disease is similar, but their experience is uniquely their own.
Yes.
And it's so important to help normalize that for them. And then just let them know I support you no matter what it is that you're going through. If you
Mm-hmm.
feel like you're in the dark, then I'm going to sit in the dark with you and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to hold your hand and I'm not going anywhere.
That's it. That's it. For me as a therapist, I've had a couple clients that had cancer and is going through the journey of healing and restoration.
Mm-hmm.
For me, sometimes clients can look at therapists like we haven't been through anything, like we have never felt anything. So sometimes with consent, I will ask the client, I need to provide a little bit disclosure so that you know I feel. Okay. And I would share a little bit of my story, and they would sit there like, oh, you're just like me.
Wow.
Okay. And I've had a client tell me that. And for me, it seems as though that client was transformed because they weren't just talking to someone in therapy just to be talking, to providing personal confidentiality information, but they was talking to someone too that was almost like a mirror. How did you, Felicia, get through? What happened to you? So now their story becomes my story, and my story becomes their story.
Wow.
And with that understanding, we're walking that journey together because, see, now they say, I am emotionally supported because someone understands what I'm feeling. Someone understands what it's like to sit in a chair. Someone understands what it's like to be sitting there with everybody else that may be worse off or not, but just be able to sit in the doctor's office and hear that word.
Yeah.
So I provide that supportive and emotional support for those clients to let them know it's okay to say, I'm hurting. It's okay to say, I'm fearful, but just being able to say, it's okay.
I love that transparency. What if there is someone who finally takes the plunge to see a therapist? Because we talked about in the show that I was with you guys that it just takes a lot just to even get into your chair, right? So when they finally get into the chair and they find a therapist that is a little bit more reserved, and it's not necessarily that's a wrong way, it's just depending on the temperament of the therapist. Um, if they find someone who is not willing to share, what are some things that the client needs to look for to make sure that they are breaking through that glass, to make sure that they are really getting the tools that is being, taught to them?
Oh, well, Pastor Kim, I'll take that one. Because the beautiful thing about therapy, right? And for me, I would say therapy is a massaging of the human soul, mind, and body, right? And so, and a lot of times, people are so used to just this inner exchange of, I'm here, I want to know something about you. Can you tell me something about and those types of things to help us with our comfortability, right?
Mhm.
But when people come to therapy, the therapist is really there for you.
Right.
It's not about us.
Mhm.
And sometimes people have a difficult time trying to understand that because when you come to a therapist chair, the spotlight is all on you. It's like how, Coach Felicia had mentioned that there are times, right? And it's really, and I'm sure, the help is on the seat. It's like this intuition that lets you know when you need to kind of step out and step into to really support the client because the client is actually a little bit more guarded or what have you. And so to
Mhm.
kind of make that connection and helping them to feel that they're not alone, we will do that. But the one thing that I would hope that our listening audience would take away, because there are some, but not every therapist. So let me not make this generalized statement, right? Because there are some therapists who will open up
Mhm.
and talk to you real, I mean, just like on the spot when that's not always advised simply because
Mhm.
it takes away. You're coming in to be served and to be helped on a very high level. So the therapist, the light dims and the light
Mhm.
turns on for you. And and a lot of times, if we have the skills and the tools, which is lots of compassion, lots of safety, lots of toning and things of that nature to help a client to feel comfortable with that spotlight on and recognizing it's not about me today, it's completely about you. And here's another thing I want to tag on to that. Sometimes people don't recognize that them asking and trying to get the information from the therapist about them, how do we connect? It's really a type of avoidance strategy as well because I'm
Yeah.
so uncomfortable, I don't know what to do,
Mhm.
and so that's what I have to offer on that.
I want to piggyback on what both the coaches just said. one of the things that, so me as a clinician and as a coach, I'm very transparent. I will share as much as the client can handle.
Mm-hmm.
But I, like Felicia just said, I say, do you mind if I borrow a page from my life experience to share with you? But it's something that's, when we're taught and we're trained that you don't share and divulge personal things about yourself unless it's going to move the client forward.
Mm-hmm.
So as Coach Mary J said, it's the clients. This is their time. It's not our time. So yeah, we are trained to sit silent and to listen and to show positive regard for the client. And it takes a seasoned therapist to understand when it's time to share, to move the client forward.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember one acronym, and it's like, why are you still talking? You know, why are you still talking as the clinician? If we're talking, I was trained, if you're talking longer than 5 seconds, you're talking too much.
Mm.
So sometimes I know as a therapist, I kind of have that coaching hat on and I kind of go back and forth and I ask myself, why are you still talking?
Mm-hmm.
This is not your show. This is the client's show.
It's that acronym of WAIT.
Wait, yes, I couldn't think what it was. Yeah, thank
Why
you.
am I talking? Yeah,
Right.
wait.
Exactly.
I
And
love
sometimes too, in the therapeutic setting, when we're doing information gathering, we're gathering enough information where we know what we need to do to help move that client forward.
Mm-hmm.
Not all the time does anything need to be disclosed, because even through self-disclosure, sometimes it can hurt that client.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when we have to decide and know and have the discernment as to what is appropriate and what is not. So generally, when clients come before any of us as clinicians, they can feel the genuineness, they can feel the transparency, they can feel the unconditional positive regard, they can feel the authenticities, but that is not to be misconstrued as because, oh, this therapist is so nice, she smiled. Well, we're listening.
Mm-hmm.
We're letting you know that we're with you.
Yes.
And so, or another client may say, well, I had to let this therapist go because she didn't seem as though she didn't talk a lot. She didn't say much. She did, She just looked at me with poker face.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what we're supposed to do as clinicians, because we're taught to listen and zip it. And when it's time to talk at the end, what we do, we summarize.
Mm-hmm.
We rephrase. We're doing those things to let the client know, I heard you say, da da da. In the middle, when you said, we're rephrasing, we're using the client's words, but we're also kind of twisting and putting our own words to let the client know that it's just not so word for word, but we heard you.
Yeah.
And some clients don't understand that. But when they get in front of a therapist like myself, Tanya, or Coach Tam, oh yeah, we give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, for me, I mean, I'm not a clinician. I'm a coach. But sometimes me showing my authenticity and transparency allows the client to open up. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and I don't go on like, yeah, da, 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 da. And I'm like, you know, I understand because, you know, I was there one time as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this happened. And then they'll be like, oh, blah, 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 you know, and then they will go on. And I usually will do that if they're not talking, you know, like they want to get help, but they're not talking. You know, they're like, I'm asking, yes, no, yes, no. So I'm like, I want you to talk some more so I can find out some more things so that I can be like Felicia, like, oh, so I heard you say, and this is what you meant by this, and you said this, that, and the other. But I think that the authenticity and transparency, you know, wins with them and gives them the confidence that they can talk to me